Now, the Green Bay Packers just had a rough season. They missed the playoffs. So let's get into their history since Aaron Rodgers became their starting quarterback back in 2008. So 2007, I included the 2007 because that was Brett Favre's last season. I wanted to compare how was Brett Favre's last season compared to Aaron Rodgers. And I also said, okay, where the Packers rank the league in terms of offense, in terms of yards. I did not put up the scoring offense or the scoring defense ranks. I put up, these ranks are by yards. So in 2007, the Packers gained the second most yards in the league, gave up the 11th fewest yards in the league, which is a pretty good combination. They went 13-3 that year, and they ended up losing NFC Championship game versus the Giants. Now, NFC Championship game losses will become a theme of this video, especially as we get into the later years. So after that, Brett Favre decides he's retired. He's done. And then he tries to come back. And the Packers say, no, we have this guy, Aaron Rodgers, who we drafted now. He's entering his fourth season, never been a starter, but we think he's going to be something special. So Brett Favre, we're going to get rid of your rights because we're going with Aaron Rodgers. He's our guy. So that first season, how does that pay off? Packers 8th in offense, 20th in defense. So their defense got much worse from 2007 to 2008. The Packers as a team, they also drop off, going from 13-3 to 6-10 out of the playoffs. They don't make it at all. So it's looking like, okay, well, the Packers got worse with Aaron Rodgers, but how did the quarterback play? Favre in 2007, his last year, 4,155 passing yards for 28 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. Aaron Rodgers, his first year, just over 4,000 passing yards for a total of 4,038, 28 passing touchdowns, 13 interceptions. So their touchdown interception ratio is basically the same. And their yards total, not that much different either. So that tells me that the drop in the team performance has mostly to do with the defense. But the Packers, their defense will get back on track. So in 2009, the Packers with the 6th best offense in the league in terms of yards, again, very good. Throughout this whole board, they're very high ranked in offensive yards. Their defense is actually 2nd in the league in terms of yards. That's the highest it will ever be with Aaron Rodgers as their quarterback, barring some sort of miracle turnaround this coming season. They go 11-5 and they lose to Kurt Warner and the Cardinals in a absolutely thrilling 41-55 overtime game. Won on a defensive touchdown, ironically in a game that didn't have much defense. But Rodgers himself has a fantastic season, shows why the Packers chose him to be their guy. Throws for 4,434 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. So Aaron Rodgers looking like he's going to be really good. But can he get done the wild card? So far he's 0-1. But 2010 will quell all doubts. The Packers sneak in as a wild card, although their rankings suggest that they should have been better. 9th in offense, 5th in defense, again for yards gained. They go 10-6 and they go on to win the Super Bowl as the number 6 seed in the NFC, and they beat the Steelers in the process. I don't have that on the board, but that's the matchup, Packers for Steelers, and the Packers ended up winning. Aaron Rodgers, kind of a down season for his standards, 3,922 yards, 28 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. And that will be the last time that he hits double-digit interceptions in a season until, we'll get to that. 2012, I just skipped a season. 2011, Aaron Rodgers, arguably his best season. I say arguably because there's a more recent season that could take that crown from 2011. Excuse me. But 3rd in offense, 32nd in defense. They gave up the most yards in the entire NFL in 2011. Yet, they go 15-1. They look dominant all regular season, except for a loss against the Chiefs. 19-13 at Arrowhead. The Chiefs won. Not ended the Packers' chance for a perfect season. The Chiefs ended up missing the playoffs that year. Honestly, that should have been quite the red flag. In fact, they go out and they lose in the divisional round. They did not win a playoff game. They lost in the divisional round to the Giants. So the Giants, they show up here in Brett Favre's final season. Show up again here in Aaron Rodgers' best season. And I put a star right here next to 2010 to show that they won Super Bowl. Put an asterisk right here next to 2011 to show that Aaron Rodgers won MVP. Now, as you notice, there's a star here, there's an asterisk here, asterisk down here, and then we'll get to these. 2 more asterisks. But you notice, Aaron Rodgers wins MVPs after he's won the Super Bowl. So, does Aaron Rodgers getting better make the Packers worse as a team? Probably not by itself. But certainly the defense dropping to 32nd in yards given up in 2011 did not help them. And in fact, it would never reach the top 10 again throughout the rest of 2010s. So 2012, this season, the Packers go 11-5, and they lose in the divisional round to the 49ers. Yeah. So, but their rankings were pretty good. 13th in offense, 11th in defense. But the 49ers, they will show up on this board in more recent years. We have not seen the end of the 49ers on this board, believe me. Aaron Rodgers has an excellent season. Those are 4,295 yards, just 5 short of 4,300, 39 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. And I forgot to mention, 2011, 4,643 yards, a ridiculous 45 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. That is insane, especially in 2011, when the passing rules aren't as boosted as they are now. This is 11 years ago, 12 actually, because it's 2023. He's putting up numbers that look absolutely ridiculous today. Absolutely deserve that MVP. But 2012, slight step back, still an excellent season. The Packers started the year 2-3. They smoked the Texans, who were 5-0 at the time, on Sunday Night Football. And then they finished the year red hot, 11-5. They were one of the hottest teams in the NFL going into the playoffs. And they actually win in their first round game, in the wild card game, and then they lose to the 49ers in the divisional round. That's just how it happened. 49ers made the Super Bowl that year, by the way, so they were another good team. 2013, the Packers take a step back. Does Aaron Rodgers? No. But Aaron Rodgers does get injured. Despite this, the Packers go 8-7-1. They win the division, and they make the playoffs. They lose in the wild card round versus the 49ers. 49ers showing up again. That's 2 years in a row they've lost to the 49ers. Believe me, there's still more 49ers on this board. Aaron Rodgers, he gets injured in the middle of this season. Comes back towards the end, I believe. No, that was 2017 he came back. He did not come back this season. In his 9 games that he started, goes 6-3. Throws for 2,536 yards, 17 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. That's a good season. Through 9 games, that's pretty good. You maybe want the touchdowns a little higher, but in 2013, the Packers, I believe they're having some receiver troubles. Donald Driver just left the year prior to retirement. Greg Jennings just signed with the Vikings that offseason. So you're left with Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, James Jones. Those are good players, but they're not Greg Jennings. And Jermichael Finley would actually play his last game during this season because he had a career-ending injury, much unfortunately. Matt Flynn, in his 4 starts, goes 2-2 as a starter. Throws for 1,146 yards, 7 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. That's decent. That's kind of what you want out of a backup coming in for a few games. Seneca Wallace and Scott Tolzien would start a combined 3 games, going 0-2-1. That's where the 1 tie comes from. But I did not feel they're important enough to put on this board. But the Packers take a step back. But it's not because Aaron Rodgers played bad. It's because he got injured. It's not the last time we'll see that. 2014. This is the relaxed season. They start off 1-2, if I remember correctly. 1-2. And then from there, it was just dominance. And they end up reaching the NFC Championship game. And they lose to the Seahawks in overtime. They led 16-0 at halftime. They lost it all and then lost 23-16 in overtime. Brandon Bostic gets the blame for muffing the onside kick, and that's fair. I do think that he deserves some portion of the blame for that. But at the end of the day, you shouldn't have to rely on recovering the onside kick to win a game that you were winning 16-0 at halftime. Your defense should be able to shut that out. So why couldn't they? Well, they had the 6th best offense in 2014, 15th in yards. That's kind of mediocre. And I neglected to mention 2013, 3rd in yards. That's despite this injury to Rodgers. That's despite Flynn, Seneca, Wallace, and Tolzien playing 7 games. 25th in yards allowed. That's not good. 2014, it stays mediocre. And they end up losing because their defense couldn't stop the Seahawks in the second half. That's another NFC Championship game. That's one with Favre that they lost, and that's now here. That's 2 wild card exits, 2 divisional exits. They lose to the Giants twice on this side of the board. They lose to the 49ers twice, and Seahawks, and the Cardinals. So if you're the Packers, you really don't want to see any NFC West teams in the playoffs. Yeah, that's kind of how it goes. So moving to the other side of the board, I have from 2015 to present. So in 2015, this is kind of a mediocre season for Packers standards. 23rd in offense, 15th in defense. Both of the 23rd is in the bottom half of the league. 15th is right around mediocre. Despite this, they go 10-6. They do not win the division though, because I believe the Vikings had an excellent season that year with Teddy Bridgewater. They beat the Redskins in the wild card round, go on to the divisional round versus the Cardinals. Again, NFC West team, and they lose. And this game went to overtime. Aaron Rodgers threw a crazy Hail Mary to Jeff Janis to force overtime. But in the end, Larry Fitzgerald just took over. He had that incredible catch and run where Carson Palmer evaded the sack, and Fitzgerald took it to the 4-yard line. Then a couple plays later took the scoop pass in from Palmer to score. But Aaron Rodgers, he plays pretty well that season. 3,821 yards, 31 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. That is slightly down from his ridiculous 38-5 touchdown interception ratio in 2014, where he told everybody to relax and then won MVP. Hence the asterisk. That's just out of camera shot. Hence the asterisk. Again, MVPs after the Super Bowl. 2016, Packers offense recovers. Go from 23rd to 8th, so the top 10 in yards. Their defense falls to 22nd, and this is when we're starting to see the Packers relying on Aaron Rodgers to carry them. And it will come back to bite them later on in this board. This is the run the table season. The Packers go 4-6. They're looking like they're out of the mix. They've just lost a few games in a row. Most recently to the Redskins on Sunday Night Football. Then they go to Philly, Monday Night Football. They win. And then they win and they win and they win. And they never lose again in the regular season. They go 10-6. They win the division. They're red hot coming into the playoffs. They've run the table. They make it all the way to the NFC Championship game versus the Falcons. And surprisingly, the Falcons did not choke this game. They would choke the next game. That's for a whole different discussion. Aaron Rodgers, excellent season for him. 4,428 yards, 40 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. He's back over 40 touchdowns for just the second time. First being 2011. He's back over it again. 2017. This is the other year that Rodgers gets injured. So there's 2 years Rodgers gets injured, 2013 and 2017. Up to this point, there's only 2 seasons where Aaron Rodgers is the starter and the Packers have less than 10 wins. That's 2008, his first season as a starter, which is understandable. He's getting used to the game. And then 2013, where he's injured for half the year. And they still make the playoffs anyway. Why? Because they were a really freaking good team. You know, they went 6-3 with Rodgers. If you extrapolate that to a full 16-game season, that's about a 10-6, 11-5 record, which is very solid. That'll get you in the playoffs almost every single season, especially now with 7 playoff teams from each conference. I personally think they should go back to 6, but again, that's a whole different discussion. So 2017, the bottom falls out. They go 7-9, their first losing record since 2008, and they miss the playoffs. Aaron Rodgers, in the 7 games that he's able to play, goes 4-3. 1,675 yards, 16 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Excellent season for Rodgers when he plays. The thing is, he broke his collarbone on a sack by Anthony Barr in Week 5. He came back the last couple weeks of the season, but by that time, the Packers were already out of the playoff mix. Brett Hundley comes in. He starts the other 9 games, goes 3-6. It's a rough season for Brett Hundley, who was honestly not ready to be a starter. And this really killed any chances he had of succeeding Aaron Rodgers in retirement. He goes 3-6, goes for 1,836 yards, so he actually leads the team in passing that year. There's a trick answer for you. Who is the only quarterback other than Aaron Rodgers to lead the Packers in passing yards over the last 10 years? Brett Hundley. It's because of injury. 9 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. So that is the first time that we've seen a negative touchdown-interception ratio on the sport. Even Matt Flynn had a positive 7-4. Hundley, 9-12. It's not ideal. It's not ideal. 2018. This is where the bottom really falls off. Mike McCarthy gets fired in the middle of the season. And, they improved from 26 in 2017, not good, to 12th, which is slightly above average in offense, 22nd in defense to 18th. Both of those are below average mediocre. Again, they're relying on Aaron Rodgers to carry the franchise. And in 2018, he has an excellent season. But the Packers do not as a whole team. Rodgers throws for 4,442 yards, which is less yards than only 2011, his MVP season. 25 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. 25 touchdowns is low for Rodgers. But that touchdown-interception ratio of 25-2, that's one of the best in history. That is absolutely ridiculous. Let's just say that he doubles his touchdowns-interception ratio. Actually, no, keeps the same ratio, but you just double his touchdowns and interceptions. That's 50 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. That's ridiculous. Obviously, we can't do that, but it's the same touchdown-interception ratio. I mean, he played fantastic. But Mike McCarthy gets fired in the middle of the season. Joe Philbin takes over. The Packers win a couple games under Philbin, but they're already out of the playoff mix. And now, after these 2 down years, Mike McCarthy's out the door. They hire Matt LaFleur. And things get better under Matt LaFleur. And right away, too. Now, their offense goes to 18th in yards. Their defense remains at 18th in yards. So those totals will tell you they're a mediocre team. But their defense, despite being 18th in yards, was top 10. It was number 9 in scoring. So they were a team that gave up a lot of yards, but when they got in the red zone, they tightened it up. And they go 13-3. The Packers are back. Aaron Rodgers in particular has an excellent season. Some pressure is taken off of him as Aaron Jones becomes an excellent running back in the league. They go all the way to the NFC Championship game versus the 49ers, and they lose. So the 49ers showing up again. They've shown up here on this side. Now they're showing up here. Again, another NFC West team. Rodgers, 4,002 yards, 26 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. As some of that pressure was being taken off of him because for the first time in his career, he had a really good run game with Aaron Jones and being an excellent number 1 and Jamal Williams being an excellent number 2. In fact, Jamal Williams just had a 1,000-yard season for Detroit this year, and Aaron Jones had a 1,000-yard season for the Packers this season. So those are 2 really good running backs. 2020, more of the same. But their rankings, league-wide, takes a major leap. And you'll notice it's got the MVP. 5th in offense, 9th in defense. They go 13-3 for the second consecutive season. Also for the second consecutive season, they lose in the NFC Championship game. Against whom? The Bucs, against Tom Brady. And they go on to win the Super Bowl. The real scapegoat from that game was Kevin King, the cornerback, giving up a long touchdown to Scotty Miller right before halftime. But Aaron Rodgers has an excellent season, as you can tell by the MVP. Wins MVP, 4,294 yards. Really good. 48 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. That is remarkable. That's better than this. which we all thought was insane and impossible to replicate. He does it again and betters it with 2 more touchdowns. Incredible. I mean, he's at the absolute top of his game right now. And keep in mind, Aaron Rodgers is in his mid 30s at this point. He comes in 2008, his first year as a starter, his 4th as a pro. So he's not like a 22-year-old rookie. He's more like a 26-year-old rookie. And he's still slinging it. Maybe those extra years as a backup helps him extend his career longer. 2021, another MVP. That's 2 in a row. 10th in yards, 9th in defensive yards. They go 13-4 because the extra regular season game, which I think is completely ridiculous and a farce, but that's, again, another discussion. They lose in the divisional round versus the 49ers. So how many times did the 49ers show up? 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 4 times that they've lost to the 49ers in the playoffs, at some point in the playoffs. That is specifically twice in the divisional round, once in the wild card, once in the NFC Championship game. This team cannot be the 49ers. And this game versus 49ers was a 10-3 snowfest. And the Packers went down the field. No. Was it 10-3 or 10-7? No, it was 10-7. It was 10-7. They go down the field. They score a touchdown early in the first quarter. And then their second drive, I believe they missed a field goal. And from there, it just all fell apart. And later in the fourth quarter, it's 7-3 Packers. 49ers block a punt. It's a touchdown. And that's the winning score. So that's just an absolute heartbreaker for the Packers. And this year was the last dance, so to speak, because it was Devontae Adams last year. They ended up trading him to the Raiders this offseason, which undoubtedly contributes to what we're about to get into. But that was the last dance, so to speak. In 2022, bottom falls out again. For the Packers, yes. For Aaron Rodgers, this time, yes. So they're 17th in offense, 17th in defense. Mediocre all around in that sense. They're 8-9. Now, what that doesn't tell you is that the Packers were 4-8 at one point in the season. They win 4 in a row, get to a win in game versus the Lions, and then they lose it in Lambeau Field. That is an absolute stunner. The Lions in Lambeau have been, they're not Lions. Let's just say they're more like domesticated house cats in Lambeau Field than the Lions. So he missed the playoffs for the first time since 2018. Aaron Rodgers has his worst season to date, 3,695 yards, which is the first time he's under 4,000 in a full season since 2015. First time he missed the playoffs in a full season. Actually, no. Since 2008. Excuse me. 2018, actually. I misspoke again. But 26 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. That is the first time he has double-digit interceptions in a season since they won the Super Bowl back in 2010. He's putting up all these gaudy numbers. All of these gaudy numbers. Wins 4 MVPs. And yet, they're most well known for this early Super Bowl, followed by a decade plus of failure in the playoffs. So while this down season for the Packers is nothing new for them as an organization, they've seen them in 2018 and 2017, 2013, 2008. It's a down year for Rodgers. And that is the unusual part. Because even in 2013, he plays well before injury. In 2017, he plays really well before injury. 2018, fantastic. Plays a full season, but the team around him just can't get it done. But 2022, this time it's Aaron Rodgers playing poorly that hurts his team. That in the end costs them a playoff berth. And based on his demeanor after the Lions game, it looked to me like he was going to retire. Now, I've changed this opinion in recent days because it's come out that Aaron Rodgers says that he's not done, which I think he means it when he says it. Because, I mean, he's played really good football in very recent times. But it's this season that's going to stick out like a sore thumb just because of how poor it was. And it seemed like Rodgers was very frustrated. Now, he was all out of sync with his receivers. Allen Lazard was his leading receiver. He's been there since 2019. I believe he had about 800 yards. Christian Watson really exploded in the second half of the season, but he struggled in the first half, got concussion. Romeo Doubs, he was good, mostly good. He had a couple bad drops, including a long touchdown that, oh man, imagine if he had caught that. But, very young group of receivers. And you can definitely make that argument that losing Adams after these 2 MVP years hurts his numbers here. But I think it's fair to make that argument. But at the same time, I don't think losing Adams is the only explanation for why his numbers drop so much. Doesn't explain 8 more interceptions, that's for sure. Sure, you can make the argument that, some interceptions bounce off receivers' hands. That's undoubtedly true. That happens to all quarterbacks. And Adams probably has better hands than Romeo Doubs. Just saying. I don't think that's a hot take. No disrespect to Romeo Doubs. I think he's a really good player. But Adams is one of the best. But the Packers, this offseason is a crossroads for them. What are they going to do? Will they bring back Rodgers? Will they start Jordan Love, who they drafted in the first round of 2020? He's not going into year 4. And remember what happened in year 4. Aaron Rodgers starts his first game as a Green Bay Packer. So if they draft Jordan Love with the intent that he is the next Aaron Rodgers, which I don't think is fair to force onto Jordan Love, then I feel like you got to start his contract expires after this season, provided they don't pick up the 5th-year option. And excuse me, and I think they should pick up the 5th-year option. Get him another year cheap-ish before you have to pay him. I really find it hard to believe that Aaron Rodgers comes back to the Packers, although I do think that is a lot more likely than what happened when Brett Favre retired and tried to come back to the Packers. And that he was turned away. I think there's a much better chance Aaron Rodgers is welcomed back to the Green Bay Packers than Brett Favre had any chance of coming back. I really do. I do think that these two situations are comparable because there's been rumors really all season that this is the end for Aaron Rodgers. In fact, those rumors go back to this season. They go back to here when they drafted Jordan Love. This whole narrative that he wins MVP because he's pissed off Aaron Rodgers, and that's how he gets to play best. And then here, he's auditioning for Denver or whoever needs a quarterback, but the rumors were Denver. And then Denver goes out, hires Nathaniel Hackett, who was the offensive coordinator these 2 seasons, in an attempt to lure Aaron Rodgers to Denver. Doesn't work. They trade for Russell Wilson. That's a whole different discussion that I might have to do one on that. But anyway, it's really an indictment to the Packers, I think, that they trade Adams and then Rodgers' numbers drop off so much. I don't think that's entirely because of Adams. I do think Aaron Rodgers got worse from 2021 to 2022. He was just out of rhythm the whole season, and he was very frustrated. You could see, not angry like I gotta go out and prove something. More frustrated like, these receivers are so freaking bad. Sucks. More sort of that sort of feel. And I don't think it's fair for that, especially for the receivers. Allen Lazard is a really good receiver. Christian Watson is an absolute mega talent. He's going to be a superstar for the Packers. Romeo Doubs is a very good receiver also. He probably won't ever be a number 1, but when you have Christian Watson, who's also from your same draft class, Romeo Doubs doesn't need to be that number 1. Now, Allen Lazard is likely gone. That all indications are pointing to him leaving in free agency. As a Titans fan, I would love the Titans to go out and get Alan Lazard. Speaking of the Titans, I've heard rumors that he's considering joining the Titans. I'm not sure how that would work under the salary cap. I'm pretty sure Titans would have to have a large amount of dead cap to get rid of Ryan Tannehill and bring in Aaron Rodgers. Not sure how that would work. Not sure the new GM they just hired from the 49ers would want that to deal with that. But that's the rumor that's out there. Quite frankly, as a Titans fan, if we're getting this Aaron Rodgers, I don't think that's that much of an improvement on Tannehill, if I'm being quite honest. Now, granted, he might be able to stay healthy or better than Tannehill, but yeah, you just looked out of sync this season. That's really it. So, in conclusion, this season, 2022, down season for the Packers. Nothing new for them as a team, but it is very new to Aaron Rodgers as a quarterback, and it leaves his future with the team in doubt. So, like if you like that, dislike if disliked. And that's all from me for now.